Hey, hello, and welcome to everybody on the Music to Grieve to playlist channel. This is Andrew again, and I'm here once again with Sharon from Grieve Reiki. Hey, Sharon.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
I'm back on morning, same time as you. I'm back in Los Angeles.
Well, welcome back.
Very happy to be back here. It was a good time in Scotland, took care of family. Got caught up in a snow blizzard, and very happy to be back here where the sun's out and it's blue and it's warm.
Yes. Well, welcome.
Okay, so after the success of February, where Sharon and I were looking at the promotion of the online course, how to heal yourself when you're grieving, which is still around, and we'll always put the link underneath here, so check it out. We found that developing this format and just taking a topic and having a discussion about it was working really well, and we wanted to continue that. So we're going to look at a series of Wednesday Facebook Live chats just like this, where we're coming at it from the angle of music, and Sharon with a wide experience in the grief world. We're going to pick a topic and we're just going to riff on it and share some experiences and some best practices and maybe look at a little bit of music. So you're welcome to share this with anybody. Come jump in. You can give us reactions, add comments, and we'll check them out. But one that's close to my heart at the moment, we thought we'd start with pet loss. So Sharon, this is a huge thing that we've seen online. So give us a little bit of an opener into the grief behind pet loss.
Well, first of all, if you think about how many pets are here in the United States, I checked out a study that said about 70% of households have some kind of pet. And on top of that, that makes probably about 85 million, I think they said, 85 million households who have animals, and that's anywhere from fish to reptiles to dogs and cats. So, as a result of that, there's a huge number of pets that die annually. And so if you think about the magnitude of the grief all across the country of people grieving the loss of their pets, it's huge, but yet it seems like a topic that really isn't discussed enough, right? And I think pet loss is one of those discounted griefs because, so many non-pet owners think, oh, well, it was just an animal, it was just a pet, what are you so upset about? And I don't think people realize that, a lot of times for people, the pet is their best friend, it is their family, it is, another part of their inner circle. It's the quote unquote person who listens to them when they're sad. It's the, person who gives them unconditional love. And sometimes the animal does this over any of the humans that they know. So there's such a special bond that we have with our pet that when they die, the grief is overwhelming. And it's really, what really makes it more difficult is the fact that it is a discounted form of loss because people judge and analyze and criticize. Like, why are you so upset? It was just an animal, and that makes it even more difficult on top of grieving the pet.
It's very true. I literally, our beloved 10-year-old King Charles Cavalier, Charlie, had a heart attack right in front of me. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I thought he was choking and he was down, and I gave him CPR and tried to get him out, and he was gone. Oh. And it was, it's a horrible experience. And then I had to go and tell my wife, and it was really her dog, and that's just devastating. And everybody has their own personal thing, but it's when you share that with other people. You're right. So I was, in an Uber going somewhere later that day, and the driver, was just, well, it's just a dog. What are you worried about? Go on, get the next one. And it's that feeling that you're not allowed to have that grief because society says, oh, pets are second creatures, and then you feel weird about that. How do you address that?
Well, I think the important part is to not let what people say affect you, and that's really hard. It's really about the relationship with your animal and knowing that unconditional love that you felt was real. Finding a group of supporters who, you know, have also lost pets is very healing as well. I mean, I hate that I have grievers who have to come into a pet loss group, but the pet loss group, it's like they've held on to those emotions for so long because of fear of being analyzed or criticized or receiving those kind of comments that you received, and they hold it inside. And then when they're in a group with others who've lost pets, I mean, it just pours out of them. My heart breaks because they've tried so hard to just hold it in, and in reality, you know, their hearts are broken. I think so. Finding other pet owners to talk to is really, really cathartic, and they can understand. I mean, we have 2 cats. I don't know what I would do if anything happened to the cats. You know, and I know people would say, oh, you know, they're just cats, but you know, they have personalities, and you know, they're there. And when my loved one died, you know, the cats were just like all over me because they knew. I mean, they just knew. So it's so important to kind of not, especially here in LA, where people are very judgmental, not take it personally, which is often hard to do.
That's very much, I mean, that's advice for life, isn't it?
Yeah,
Don't worry so much about what other people think. But it's weird because we used to have 3 dogs, and then Bowser died, you know, my beloved Cocker Spaniel, a couple of years ago, and we didn't replace him, so we were down to 2, and that was Charlie the Cav and, you know, Foxy, who's a Papillon. And since Charlie's died, Foxy has been depressed. You know, just kind of off of food, down, and, you know, you look at that and you think, wow, I didn't know that, you know, dogs go through that. Your pets go through it too, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they feel it. I mean, you know, this is their bond as well. And I know this sounds weird, but my sister had 2 rabbits. And I remember when one of the rabbits died, the other rabbit just, I mean, it was devastated. You could tell it was just moping around. It was just heartbreaking to watch. But yeah, they have feelings and bonds with the other animals as well. So, you know, it's important to understand that they're going through something that we're going through as well.
Right. Because there's that, we were chatting before we come on. I mean, the general rule, not general rule, but advice would be not to immediately replace your pets. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, I think that, you know, that's one of the myths of grief that we've all been taught is if you lose something, go get another one, right? And that's true with like relationships. You know, if your girlfriend breaks up with you, you just go get another one and you keep getting other ones. But in reality, what happens, and this is true with pets sometimes, is that people don't have a chance to grieve for the animal that they've lost. And so when a new animal comes into the household, and I had a client that this happened to, she lost her dog. She saw another dog. She thought, well, if I bring this dog home, I'm going to feel better. But she didn't. She didn't feel better. She kept thinking of her other dog who had died. And, you know, it's not the same. So in some ways, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but to consider, you know, making sure that you've gone through the grief for that, you know, animal that's passed, for Charlie or whoever that's passed away. Because if you bring a new animal in, they might not stand a chance because it might be hard to bond with them. It might be difficult, you know, because they're not the same way. They're going to do things different because they're a different dog, right? A different personality. And for some people, that's very difficult. And I found that my client ended up taking the dog back to where she had gotten it because she realized she wasn't ready. And some people are and some people aren't. But I think without grieving for the loss of the pet that has died, it's like the girlfriend or the boyfriend, right? You know, if you haven't grieved for it, the other person doesn't really stand a chance. And then you've brought all the emotional, I don't want to say baggage, but all the emotions that go with the loss of that relationship into the new one. And right. It really has nothing to do with that person if it doesn't work out. It's the fact that you haven't worked through it. So, I mean, it can be said to be the same for a dog. So I would just caution people to really make sure that they've grieved before they bring, you know, a new animal into their home.
How do you know when you're on the other side of grief? I mean, is there...
You know, that's Wonderful question, because when you're going through it, you just don't know, right? It's only, for me, it's only when you look back. And I think sometimes if the memories are still painful, right? I mean, if the memories don't bring a smile to your face or tears to your eyes, if it's still very, very painful and raw, then, you're still kind of in the midst of your grief and you still have things you have to work on in order to move forward. I wish there was like a point where the light comes on and you're like, okay, I'm done, time to move on. But it's not that easy. For me, it's been when I look back, it's like you're in the middle of it. And then one day you think, oh, I woke up today and I feel a little bit lighter, or, I woke up today and I'm thinking of my loved ones and I'm not in this depth of despair. So, everybody's journey is different and everybody's, light bulb moment, I guess, is different. So it has to go with how you're feeling, because grief is about your emotions. And you can think you're feeling better because you buried them, right? And so you're kind of going through it because they're buried deep down, but eventually they may come back up. So I think being in touch with your emotions will tell you when you're ready, and you've moved through it to a point that it doesn't feel as painful and desperate as it does in the beginning.
And when it is painful, when you look back, when you say do the work, generally what does that involve?
So as a certified grief recovery specialist, the work that we've been taught is, we talked about, I think you and I talked about last week or the week before, about unresolved grief. And those are the things that you woulda, shoulda, coulda done. Coming to terms with those things, either, and then this is true even with animals. I see so many pet loss clients who feel so guilty because they should have done more. I should have taken, Fifi to the vet. I could have, if I'd only. And they beat themselves up over that and not realizing that, in life, we have no control. I mean, even if they had taken them to the vet earlier, it may have still had the same outcome. So coming to terms with those things, forgiving yourself, for the things you think you didn't do, or the perception of things you thought you didn't do, and just fondly thinking about all of those wonderful things about the animal that you love and that you miss, and, being in tune with the feelings that come with that and allowing them to come through you. So getting through that coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff is really, really important. Otherwise, then you drag that with you through every loss that happens in the future.
So just because I know you come from the Reiki world, how does Reiki play a role in that?
I think it's hard to say being calm, because grief and calmness don't often go together. But right. I think Reiki helps in a way that keeps your mind clear, because grief is so discombobulating that you're just in that brain fog. I call it grief brain, where like people say things to you and you don't even hear them, or you're driving and you don't even know how you got to where you are at this point on the road. It's like, oh my God, how did I get here? You've got that grief brain. Reiki has a very calming effect on people. And I think physically, emotionally, and spiritually, we're not very calm when we're grieving. And if you can come back to a place of calmness in your emotions and your physical body, and as well in your spiritual, then you really have that stamina to get through grief, because grief is really an effort, right? It's a journey. It's something that you really have to work at. And if you're totally worn out, it's harder to get through it. So Reiki brings you back to a place where you can have the stamina to really get through your journey, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I think that's what we need. Otherwise, we're depleted and drained, and we go to that place of darkness, which isn't a good place to be.
And Reiki is something you can do on your own, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's some very simple things to do. I mean, I just tell people that it's called the Reiki calming practice. You just put your left hand over your stomach, or your left hand over your stomach and your right hand over your heart. And you just concentrate on those two things and nothing else, not, your work and not anything else. And you just concentrate on the energy that's flowing through your hands in those two areas. And you can do that for a minute. You could do it for 5 minutes. And it is a very practiced. I mean, it's a very peaceful, relaxing kind of thing to do in the midst of all the craziness that we have on a daily basis. And that's Reiki. I mean, that's really what it is. It's sending energy to the places that need it, your heart, especially when you're grieving.
I think it's brilliant because, again, with the whole pet loss thing, if there's a certain element of society that not frowns on it, but they're just not dog lovers or cat lovers, right, or bearded lizard lovers or whatever. They just, so right, they don't get it. And therefore it's diminished to them. There's, oh, you shouldn't feel that. So you tend to, you don't share that grief with people unless you know they're dog lovers. So it becomes personalized, becomes internalized. And to have tools that you can do on your own, I think there's a huge fit for, you know, pet loss and the grief around that and the whole grief Reiki construct.
You know, absolutely. I think, you know, especially with pet loss, I mean, it's a very misunderstood form of grief. And, you know, it's like with suicide, right? I mean, I couldn't walk around talking to just anybody about the suicides of my friends because most people looked at me like, go away, you said the S word, right. You know, and so you do have to do a lot of that, you know, internalizing and grieving on your own. And Reiki is one thing you can do, walking, finding those tools that help you. I mean, walking was another one for me. You know, because that, whatever gets you in touch with your emotions, music is a great release for people who are grieving.
Just about to get there, because, I mean, I love the idea of the left hand on stomach, right hand on heart, and just concentrating on the energy. Now, you could do that while listening to music, couldn't you?
Oh, my gosh. You know, in music, I listened to all the sad music I could find when my loved ones died. And I just let the tears flow. I just, you know, I felt every word, every note, that's another one of those things I say that saved me, music and walking. I would put my headphones in and I would walk and I would cry. And it was like, it would just come out, you know, otherwise it was stuck in there. And then I'd have to go back to work and fake my way through the day. So music is a wonderful way to get it out when you're grieving.
Well, there's a super track that we've got this week, and it's pinned on the Facebook page. It's the pinned post today. And it's from a Canadian, I think it's Canadian pianist called Oliver Wong. And it's his interpretation of a classic Canadian folk song. I think it's called She's Like the Swallow. And it's just one of those, I mean, you know, I'm a pianist and I come from, you know, the classical piano background. But there's something to me about, yes, I mean, I love a sad song with a sad lyric and I can empathize with the character and I can go with the narrative, but there's something about, you know, a sad solo piano, because you can just there and you can put your own narrative into the melancholy of the piece. And that's very much what this track is about this week. I think, if you've been through, you know, I mean, if you're dealing with pet loss, if you're dealing with any kind of grief, why not do this? You know, take that idea from Sharon, take the, you know, left hand on the stomach, right hand on the heart, and just clear your mind and focus on those two, you know, those two centers. Put this track on. I mean, I think it's only about 3 or 4 minutes. It's such a soulful rendition. The folk song itself is a traditional folk song about heartbreak and loss. So, I mean, the piece is set up, but the way he delivers it, I think if you were to do that, I think you might just get a little bit of peace from it.
Wow. That sounds amazing. I'm going to try that when we're done.
When we're done. All righty. So I think that is us. You know, we're going to try and keep these about 25 minutes. As I say, we talk about a topic, throw something out about it that we know, something that might help, finish with the track of the week. And we'll see how long, you know, we'll be doing this for a wee while. Anything that you want to throw in for the end, Sharon?
No, I just want to send my condolences to you and anybody who's watching, who's lost a pet. And my heart goes out to you. It's a heartbreaking loss, and you know, I can't imagine what you're going through. So I just want to send my sympathies to everybody that's experiencing what you're experiencing right now.
No, thank you. I think for next week, and Sharon and I will obviously talk about this later, what might be a good one is anniversaries, grief anniversaries, death anniversaries. I've got mine, it's all about me. No, I've got my dad coming up next week. And that was a huge one for me. So again, I'd be super interested to chat with you, Sharon, about, some of the issues surrounding anniversaries and maybe some tools that we can look at.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Sharon, as ever. It's always good. Peoples, we will catch you on the flip. Have a great rest of the week. Go and check out the track. It's well worth it. See you next week.